This job can be a little dark sometimes with some of the calls we go on. Definitely puts you on the other side of things. As a civilian, might be driving down the road and see a fire truck go by and you don't know where they're going to. It's not necessarily the big glamorous things you see on TV. We hear it on the radio every day, and I would say our department goes on at least, if not one a shift, maybe two, but there is always a constant outflow of us treating overdose patients with Narcan. You might have a customer you've been on 20 times because they hang out at the same store, but either way, you're providing them a service that the citizens are paying you to do. My name is Bobby Moss. I am a captain, paramedic here with the City of Marietta Fire Department. My station's on the west side of Marietta, and I've been here for almost 24 years.
Michael and I met in the neighborhood where we lived, and I was walking my Alaskan Malamute, and Michael said, "Mom, I'm going to date that woman." And she said, "No, you're not. She's older than you." When I was already teaching first grade, and he was working himself through college. And he said, "No, I am." And he did. He came down and knocked on my door and asked me, could he see my dog? That's pathetic, isn't it?
Did you see my record up there?
No.
See that top picture?
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's 540 pounds.
Been in the bar,
I'm Michael Owen.
Missy Owen.
Missy worked as an educator here in Cobb County for 30 years. I worked in big corporate businesses for almost 3 decades as well.
I always tell people that when you don't know anything about a disease, you don't know anything because you don't have a reason to know anything. My husband, Michael, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. We didn't know anything about type 1 diabetes. We didn't have a diabetic in the family. So the same with Davis when he became a person that was addicted to opioids. We didn't have an addict in the family. Addiction was not part of our family history. He was just a joy to have around. He was a deep thinker. He was shy. He always wanted to check things out before he'd really jump into things. So he would hide behind my leg a lot. He really needed to be comfortable with people before he would come out. And then as he got older and he got involved in more things and he became friends with people and those kind of things, he was the life of the party. Joined a lot of clubs. He was very involved in school government. So he ran for office and became the junior class president. Then his senior year, he got senior class president, gave the commencement speech to over 3,000 people at Kennesaw Mountain High School's commencement service. It's a National Honor Society, East Cobb baseball player. He was just involved in so many good things. He was a worship leader at Signature Nursing Home once a month for the older people, and they loved him. And he was the kind that loved to have wheelchair races down the hallways and stuff. They were probably glad to see him leave every Sunday, but he had fun and the people loved him. He wanted to know the whys of everything in the house, and if things didn't have purpose, he didn't really care much for those things. He needed to have a purpose.
It's fair to say I'm a car nut. If I go way back, my mother always used to laugh and tell me, Michael, ever since you were 3 years old, you would sit in the car and say, I want to, when I get older, I'm going to have me a Corvette. So I had this a fascination with sports cars when I was a young kid anyway from the beginning. And that spilled over to my son. and I ended up buying him an older Audi S4, which we enjoyed collaborating on, about cars and everything, and it gave us a common bond, because we became car enthusiasts. Car enthusiasts means we love and we take care of our cars. So it was a great way for us to get together and spend time, which was a lot, to be honest, with the older Audi S4s, and we spent a lot of time, working on those together.
We were coming home from Thanksgiving, and he wanted to go see his girlfriend because he hadn't seen her that day. She had gone with her family, and we had gone with our family. And so he got in the car, and when he pulled out of our neighborhood, he was going a little ways, and then he had to turn, but a guy came raring out of the neighborhood next door and just broadsided him. And it gave him whiplash, of course. And so he had to see a doctor, and the doctor, of course, prescribed opioids.
I had no reason to question the doctor. As a matter of fact, it never even crossed my mind. It was, if I'd thought about it, it would have been, it's got an RX beside it, so it must be okay. And on top of that, the doctor said to take it, so take it as needed. Now that I know what I know, things would have been different back then. Would have been a whole different story.
And that was the first time that we know of that he was prescribed opioids. When he went from high school to college and some very stressful things happened in his life, he remembered that euphoric feeling and wanted to get back to it. So he couldn't sleep, went to the medicine cabinet looking for something to help him sleep, and we really don't have problems sleeping in my family. So there was no Advil PM or Excedrin PM or anything like that, but there were some opioids that said may cause drowsiness. So he took those and immediately remembered that euphoric feeling. And the euphoria brought him back to the medicine cabinet every night. And at the end of that bottle, which was leftover medication in the family medicine cabinet, he was addicted to opioids.
I wasn't really looking for any specific signs because I didn't know what I didn't know. But looking backwards and questioning the symptoms and the signs at the time, you can't really put your finger on anything other than maybe this is not quite normal. And even those kind of small things can create family stress. For instance, sleeping too late on Saturday. I'm an early guy. I get up, I take care of business, go out, do all my errands that I have to on Saturday morning, maybe grab a little lunch and get back home, and it's 1 o'clock and your son's still in bed. And it's like, leave him alone, Michael. You remember when you were that age and you stayed up all night playing games and things like that. So those were the early days. As the disease and the need for opiates progressed, that's when other things started showing up. It's like, why did I find a spoon and it's got a brown residue on it? Spending an inordinate amount of time in the bathroom and finding things missing around the house, just little things.
Probably the next Thanksgiving, we went to my parents' house. Again, my parents live out in the country, so we always take our guns and we practice shooting. And when we were taking the shotguns, my husband picked up the case and says, "What is this?" And opened it. A BB gun was in it, and come to find out the shotgun had been pawned. And that's when we became aware that there was a problem.
It's funny how a stranger's life that we are called to duty for eventually somehow can be intertwined in your own, and how strange this world is, and how you can meet somebody and become an acquaintance and didn't know your lives were already intertwined some way. It was September 21st, 2021. Normal day, we're up probably 14 to 16 hours of the day. This is a very busy station. We actually sleep here, so we go to bed at like 10 or 11 o'clock. This call came in at about 3:15 in the morning. I think it was actually toned out at 3:18 a.m. That was the start of the incident. The patient, her mother called 911. She had an opiate in her body. So what it does is it's a pain reducer, but it's also a respiratory inhibitor. It slows the respiratory drive enough to where they will actually stop breathing. With her diminished breathing, her increased heart rate, she was going into compensated shock. So her body's trying to compensate for her only breathing twice a minute. The 911 operators had advised her mom to do CPR, start chest compressions on her, so that's what was going on when we got there. We were advised they couldn't feel a pulse, and while they couldn't feel a pulse, is her heart rate was so fast that you couldn't detect it. So we took over. I was able to feel a faint pulse, so we stopped the chest compressions and we went into intervention. After her mom divulged what was potentially the problem, we have a remedy for that, so we went right into interventions. Attempted to get an IV in her right arm. It infiltrated and I couldn't have that anymore, so I advised my crew member to actually take the Narcan, and we would call it atomized it per right nostril at 1 milligram. At that point, we noticed over the next minute her respiration started to increase slowly. We gave her the second dose of 1 milligram Narcan to give her the full dose. And I would say after 3 minutes, she was starting to open her eyes and come back around and become alert and oriented to us.
I'm Lexi Brown. I've lived in Kennesaw my whole life. I started softball when I was 4. My mom signed me up when I was little, and then I played pretty much 10 out of the 12 months a year, every weekend. Yep, traveling, I've went California, Colorado, New York, Texas, all the places.
What position did you play?
First and catcher, because I'm a little tall. And I went to play softball at Georgia State my freshman year. Had a full ride softball scholarship, and then I ended up breaking my ankle. So my addiction began in high school. I had gone through a lot of trauma that I was trying to cover up, and I ended up becoming friends with the wrong people. And it kind of just started that way. We just started getting into some of the wrong things and trying to have fun, but also forget about everything we had been through. So leading up to my first overdose, I had actually been to treatment a few times. I had thought I was ready every single time. I thought I was gonna try and do something that I could get away with more, that it wouldn't mess me up like physically as much as other people would be able to notice. And it turns out that I just put my faith in the wrong people, and I ended up getting sold fentanyl instead of Roxy's. I knew that everything was cut with something. I didn't know the intensity of it. I didn't know, because like I had gone from taking 4 and being fine to taking 1 and overdosing. And so you don't know how they're making it, what they're putting in it, how they're doing it, and it's different every time, which is why you can't just trust that one person or that one thing, because you don't know. I didn't even know I fell asleep. I had no idea anything happened until I woke up. It turns out when I actually took the drug test afterward that it was just fentanyl. And that was scary for me, because I didn't realize that this person that I did trust had, knowingly given me these things. It scared me for a while. I'm not gonna lie, I did go back out and do some more research, as they would call it. I had 9 overdoses. So the first one was just the beginning for me. So I'm known as was known as a chronic relapser. I would get 3 months or go back out, 6 months and go back out. It took the last time of me overdosing to really say that I was done. I figured that I didn't have any more chances, and I didn't want to leave everything behind.
In addiction, when you find out that somebody's addicted, you say, hey, can I sign up for a class? And people look at you and sign up for a class? You're going to admit to the world that you've got an addict in your family? And, the stigma that comes with that. If I had said, yeah, I'll admit it to the world, and I didn't, but I'll admit it to the world, then I'm cutting off every other child in my family, because who do you think's going to let their kids continue to come to my house where the addict lives? And how do you do that to your kid? But yet, any other disease, you can get help around the clock for. It's just so unfair.
So as we went through this process with our son, not really understanding addiction, and we stuck him into rehab, and we had no idea, how that was going to go. We were dealing with insurance limitations. My son goes in for basically, 3 weeks to rehabilitation, which is about, the only thing insurance was going to cover. And the naive side of me is when my son's coming out of rehab, I'm like, I got my son back.
He succeeded great in rehab. He gained weight. He became clear. I'll never forget walking into the rehab and seeing him after a couple of weeks and thinking, oh my God, his eyes are so clear.
Well, that was just the beginning, quite honestly. And we did not know what to expect. Missy was about ready to retire, but she was still going to work. Life's back to normal, right? For us, but not for him. His journey was just beginning, which is how do I stay clean? So he's at the house by himself, and the temptations are very high.
And at the time, there was really nothing in Cobb County to address the aftercare of somebody who was struggling with addiction. So there was nowhere really that you could go and build a network, get any resources or support at any given time.
I think what really tugged at my emotions more than anything was as I tried to learn to look for these things. I remember being at work one day and I decided to literally do something very simple, which was Google his phone number. And there it popped up, and my heart absolutely sank. It was an ad on Craigslist with his phone number, and he had stolen my oldest daughter's Christmas bracelet that we'd purchased for her that was worth a considerable amount, and it was for sale on Craigslist. I sat my son down at the dinner table, and I was trying to have this conversation to get him to open up so I could better understand. I've got to know what's going on.
Congratulations to the senior class of 2011. We made it. We have had our first taste of experience with success. May we experience much more of it in the future. By the end of this day, I hope to provide everyone with a newfound respect for the time we've spent in high school and relinquish our final days together in hopes of a promising future. For most, we will head to college remembering all we left behind.
Back in 2014, he was taken from us by a heroin overdose.
We spent so much time chasing his addiction, trying to find out where he was, who he was with, where he had been, looking for mileage on his car to try to figure out if we could piece the puzzle pieces together and who he was seeing and where he was getting the stuff. And instead of studying what addiction was and how to overcome it, we were too busy trying to make sure we were keeping him alive.
They say the phone weighs 1,000 pounds in recovery because the hardest part is to pick it up and call and ask for help. I knew I was an addict long before I got help, but then there's the part of, okay, now I'm ready to actually accept your help and get better because it takes a while for that. It takes a while to heal and to get better and to be happy and to want those things for yourselves. What I did was try to escape it. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to deal with it. But in order for, my children to not have to deal with that, I need to face it, and I need to look at it, and I need to get some help for it. Then I woke up, that was terrifying, and it definitely was a wake-up call for me. Pretty much the next thing you do is go to treatment. You get help for everything you're feeling. You start with the addiction or with the emotions, some trauma. Whatever it is, you try to pinpoint that. My main thing was trauma, so I worked on that. I went to an IOP, an outpatient center. I did a lot of therapy with that, and over the time of healing that, I was able to help other people.
Back in 2014, we lost our son to the disease of addiction. And we knew we had to do something. It was a calling. And God called and said, this should have never happened. You need to do something. You need to make this better so that other families don't have to go through what you're going through right now.
We let the world know that Davis had died from a heroin addiction. We did it through social media. And when we opened up about his addiction on social media, the messages, private messages we got because of it were probably more than the public messages we got through comments of the social media post. Because people knew the stigma. They knew why people don't come out and say, oh, my child's going through the same struggles. That was the calling. That was the calling for the ministry, was do something about it. And so within 3 weeks of Davis's death, we had filed for a 501c3 and had already gone through a community foundation to get a fund so that we could start receiving funds. And we were praying for God to tell us what we needed to do. We found it very necessary to open a recovery support organization that would be open when people actually needed the help. In the beginning, I didn't have a whole lot of boundaries. I would go down to the bluff and pick people up. I would take people to our home. I don't know if it was guilt on my part or what it was, but my children finally says, Mom, we don't feel safe here with people we don't know coming into our home. And I knew then that I had to draw some boundaries.
I ran across this building. It had been vacant for over 2 years. So I brought her down. We were able to look through the doors, walk around, and she said, this is our home. And, I'm a finance guy, so the finance side of me was like, yeah, that's going to be a little tough. But here we are. And that was the power of a lot of the reputation of serving the community that Missy had, knocking on doors because people already knew who she was because of those services. I think she took it a step further by conducting, weekly meetings at a local high school with people that were actively in recovery. And they were the ones that helped design what a place would look like this.
We found it very necessary to open a recovery support organization that would be open when people actually needed the help. And so it was at that point that we decided we had to open, and we had to open 365 days a year because addiction doesn't wait. To me, the zone is our way to honor our son and leave a legacy for people to heal from addiction. It's a place where you can begin a journey, you can continue a journey, and you can end a journey here. We do 5 things here. We do prevention, education, advocacy, harm reduction, and recovery. Recovery is the biggest thing that we do here. And when we were meeting at the high school for a year and a half, 2 years before we opened the zone, our question was, what in recovery do you need to help you stay in recovery? What's going to keep you there? The meetings, of course, the support meetings and the resources, a place to connect, make friendships, develop a network. People in recovery, their bodies have been ravaged by their drug use. So building back their bodies was a really big thing. And then we have art and music, computer labs and resource libraries, lots of reading, lots of how-to and, self-help books, things like that. We knew that people needed to connect with their families, and many times they didn't have anything when they came through the doors. So the computers were a way that they could connect, whether it be email, Facebook. We also had chiropractors in the area come on early on and say, hey, we want to get to be a part of this too. We'll do free adjustments. So we had free adjustments. And then one thing that we found out was that everybody that was coming here for services was coming in through the doors with either Starbucks or some designer coffee or whatever. So we reached out to a friend and said, we need a coffee bar. And so we built a coffee bar, and then we started selling our own coffee, and we opened it up to sell to the public as well. But it was designed by people in recovery. And if they needed something, then we helped them. They needed showers because they were homeless. They needed their laundry done, so we started laundry services. And through the 10 years that we've been open now, we continue to add. Last year alone, in 2023, we had 56,000 visits here. We served over 35,000 meals. So it's a place now that everybody knows. We've been replicated in 20 different states. It's a place where people know you can come and not be judged, not be looked down upon, but you can be welcomed with open arms no matter how many times you come through the door here. We're always glad you're back.
I had never worked in social services before, but to me, it's really like the admiration that I have for somebody that doesn't necessarily have admiration for themselves, because they're at the bottom right now mentally with their struggles. We have a prayer breakfast every Friday morning where people are free to come and join. We serve breakfast and meet for 30 minutes, just try to have something spiritual, a discussion. And a lot of people that come in are homeless and they're in recovery. I'm not sure I could do that. They are at the rock bottom part of a ladder with their life and how difficult it might be to get up to step number 10. It's a long journey. And they get up and they show up another day. And I guess the best thing I can say is that this place has provided them with hope because they come right back and they call it home.
So I actually found out about the zone through my mom. She had went in to speak to Missy about some things that were going on, and Missy told her about the CCAR program and the recovery coaching. And so that is how I actually got to the zone. I took all of the training and the classes there, and I was able to become a recovery coach.
Lexi came to us and wanted to get involved in the recovery career. So she worked really hard to become a nationally designated recovery coach, a mental health first aid certified coach.
I love helping people. That's what the zone gave me, is a passion in something. For a long time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything. I was so unhappy that I didn't care. And the zone gave me the opportunity to put that passion into something and to help people and to really pay it forward. The great thing about the zone is that you can just walk through the front doors. You don't have to set up an appointment. You don't have to do anything like that. If you walk in, you say, I need a recovery coaching session. Okay, let's go sit down and let's have one. Let's figure out what you need. I just ask them where they're at. Do they need help with a job? Is it making a resume? Is it finding a sober living? Is it finding a treatment center? Do you need help with a therapist? Do you need help with a doctor? Do you need some insurance? What can I help you with, and how can I, get you on the right path that you want to take? Because it's all about their path and, what's going to help them.
She'll come back here to study for tests. She still leads a meeting every Sunday that she loved, her meetings. And so we still have a close relationship with her, and she's going to, wherever she lands, she's going to be a beautiful person to have around.
That night, of course, we're done at 4:30 in the morning. We go back to bed for a little bit, and I get a call the next day from my wife, who works next door at City Hall, and states, hey, did you go on a call this morning? I said, yeah, we went on a call at Bromley, but I can't talk about, you're not allowed to, you can't reveal information. So she goes, no. This certain person came over and talked to me about it. I come to find out that Lexi's mom and an employee here are super good friends, like best friends. So the information starts to, get to us like, hey, we knew these people without even knowing these people. Her father being a police officer, and through a friend of a friend, I didn't know he was best friends with one of my good friends. So it's a small world. I'm proud of her because I've seen this journey for 3 years, and when I found out she was a therapy coach, I was proud of her. I think this is going to keep her down the path that she wants to be on, because she's going to see the improvement and productivity in people's lives that she's providing to them. We know what we encountered that night together. That's one thing to stick with her mom. She said, you came in and took charge and you got everybody out of the room, so Lexi got her privacy for a minute to get everything organized. I guess that's the bond we have. I looked at her as it was a friend instead of a patient, and that's the way it stuck since 3 years ago.
I'll tell you a story. Back in 2012,
16. We had just moved in here, and we had gotten Narcan to give out to the community. We were one of the only places that you could get Narcan from back then. And I had a friend that I'd taught with for many years, and she was calling me saying, my son's deep into this heroin, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. And it was Halloween time. I said, I got a big pumpkin sitting on my porch. I'm going to put Narcan in there. I know your son and your husband are coming home late tonight. Just tell them to go up to my porch, get the Narcan out of the pumpkin, and just have it. Have it. She tells them to come get it. They come and get it. And 2 weeks later, he overdoses. They hear him hit the floor, and they run up. Dad says, bring the Narcan. But you call 911, and we teach everybody, your first call's to 911. 911 took 11 minutes to show up. If they had not had that Narcan, he would have died. The problem was that they couldn't get to this neighborhood fast enough because they were a new neighborhood. They were in between county lines, and you know how that is when you're in between county lines. And so if they had had a straighter shot, or if they had had green light technology, they could have gotten there. But that would have been one instance where this child would have died without the Narcan being in the house already.
When I first started, Narcan was a very seldom used drug. The opioid addiction, the crisis was not that bad back in '01. And now I would say that we see it, 10, 20 times as much as I did back when I first started. So the prevalency of overdoses and opiate addiction is greatly increased. In the municipalities that we're in, Marietta, Cobb County, we're on the same dispatch. You hear it all day long. So second one, the tones will go off. Once in a while, the funny part of this job is you're gonna get caught in the shower, you're gonna get caught on the toilet, you're gonna get caught working out. You have to be ready to go. So from second one, the tones go off, you already start moving to the truck. Your emotions go to getting on the fire apparatus. As soon as a call comes in, you're listening to what it is. So my brain's already kicking into which mode. Is it a fire? Is it EMS? Is it a tree down? Is it a car wreck? And then as you get to the apparatus, you got to decide what gear to put on. If it's going to be a fire call or something like that, we're putting all of our bunker gear on. So that takes a minute to put that on. The state requires less than 2 minutes. We try to get it on less than a minute. So you can see the process of delay in getting from dispatch to getting dressed to getting on the road to getting to the call. So as a driver, we have policies that allow you to only go so fast over the posted speed limit. You have to clear intersections. Citizens don't always know what to do. You hover to the left, hope they go to the right, but they won't. They'll stop in front of you. Like slam on the brakes and stop. So you have to adhere to all that and go in the wrong lanes. Now you're seeing where glance comes in at that part because we're cutting time on traffic. Well, glance is operated internally in the fire apparatus through GPS and cell signal. And it detects how far you are from that signal. And it is actually affected by the turn signal also. So if we're coming up a perpendicular street to a main artery, when I hit the right turn signal, it's already prompting the next right signal. Not only is it increasing the response time because you're having to come to a complete stop for a non-controlled intersection, with cars having to come to a complete stop. So by using glance, that light is changing 20 to 30 seconds before we get there. They're already stopped. There's no safety factor. They are safe. And we can go right through the intersection with caution and not have to slow down as much as we would for a complete stop for a red light.
Football is a game of inches. When it comes to overdose, it's a game of seconds. So the greater you can, eliminate those gaps that exist, the better chance you have of, saving a life. It's that simple. And I think this kind of technology is absolutely incredible to help squeeze those gaps.
When people would say, well, how many times do you save somebody with Narcan? How many times do you bring somebody back with Narcan? If they're just going to continue doing it, what's the limit? And I looked at this guy that asked me that and I said, I don't know, what would the limit be on your child? There's no limit.
If we can bring you back, if you are breathing, you still have the opportunity and the hope to be in recovery. And that's what we want everybody that comes through here to know.
I had to try everything. I had to try all the sober livings, all the rehabs, all the IOPs, all the meetings. It turns out I was missing the God portion of it. So I tried Celebrate Recovery, which is just a Christian 12-step based program. And that kind of filled a hole in me that I had been trying to fill with drugs for a really long time. It's just having that higher power and something to believe in, put my faith in and trust in that everything's gonna work out, and continuously turning our will over, as it says in the steps, is really important because I'm not in control. And I just had to realize that.
Look, a lot of people in the recovery journey are going to replace one addiction with another, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that as long as it's a healthy addiction. To me, the exercise realm provides for the holistic phase that you need to tackle, which is the mind, the body, and the spirit. And if you can keep tackling each of those holistically, I think you could really be a lot more solid in your recovery. As a matter of fact, I had a guy come in here not too long ago I hadn't seen for 2 years. And when I saw him, I about started crying. The guy was completely transformed. It gave him a solid foundation that if I can conquer myself in here, there's nothing else that can touch me, including my propensity to go back out and start using again.
I know you've been through the zone, and I know you've looked at everything that we had in here. We didn't buy any of it. Every bit of this was given. This table right here belonged to the DEA. We've gotten so many beautiful things. If you Google our thrift stores in Cobb County, we come up #1. And that's because, the disease of addiction happens in places of wealth. And the reason that is because people of wealth have doctors, they have insurance, and insurance provides prescriptions. Prescriptions end up in the medicine cabinets, and 85% of all heroin addiction begins in the medicine cabinet. So when you think about that, you can understand that money trail and where it leads to, and the kind of families that have addiction in their families. And they're the people who give to us. Instead of saying, hey, I'm going to get $1,000 for this sofa while we go out and buy a new one, they say, no, you know what? The Zone's doing great work. Davis Direction Foundation is doing great work. We're going to donate this to them and let them have the money that they can raise through their sustained program of thrift sales and their job program. And that's what they do, and we get the most amazing things.
I never realized how many people I know walking up and down the street,
Yeah.
I go, hey, I know him.
Where did you guys hang out in high school? Where was the spot?
What was the spot in high school? Probably the mall. It would be Town Center Mall. So my mom would drop me and my friend off there for sure, and we would walk around all day. A little bit of shopping. Never heard of anybody. The local is right here as well. So that's where I used to work, on this corner, which is the one related to base camp. I think I worked there 2021, 2022, when I was in a sober living. So a lot of those places don't let you work where they can serve alcohol. And so finding a restaurant that doesn't is kind of hard. But the local, they don't serve alcohol there, and they're only open from 8 to 2. So it was a good job first getting sober, still being able to have somewhere to go and do something, but not being gone all day and not being surrounded by, drugs and alcohol, which is pretty prevalent in restaurant jobs.
Were they aware of your sobriety process? Were they cool about it, or did you kind of have to be low-key about it?
So I always try and just get the job without having to do that, because of the stigma around addiction. So I always try and just kind of keep that private until you really know who you're dealing with, because not everyone understands, you know.
As a society, in general, when we see people addicted, it's you've got to get clean, right? You got to get clean. So let's say the person gets in trouble, which most of them, or a lot of them do, end up in the court systems, have some blemishes on their record, and they work for a couple of years to get clean, and they come out of that, and they literally raise their hands up like, you know, you just scored a touchdown. I did it. Until they go try to get a job. And 20 businesses turn them down. No hope whatsoever. Just yank the rug of hope right out from under them. Now, those are very complex societal problems that not one individual can solve. We can talk about them. There are very valid reasons for that, all the way down to insurance agents that refuse to insure a business if they hire XYZ. They're very serious conversations. I get that. But there are things that we can continue to do to try to help people get their lives back together so that maybe they don't have to dig a ditch for the rest of their life, you know. And we've opened the eyes to local businesses and communities in these kind of conversations like that because they've never quite thought of it that way. So that leads me to a personal experience, and hired a lot of people over the years, but hired this young man, and he worked for me for probably over 10 years. After my son had passed, and I took a couple of weeks off for work, I came back to work, and he came over to my office and said, hey, you know, can we go out to lunch? I said, sure, absolutely. He said, let's go. So we go out to lunch, and when we got into the conversation, he said, Michael, I'm so sorry. It's okay. I'm okay. It's going to take a while. And he says, well, I need to know something from you. I said, okay. He said, I need to know the more specifics of why you hired me. I said, I'm not sure what you're getting at here. You interviewed with me, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, I know for a fact that your company had to do a background check on me, and some arrest records came back, and I need to know why you hired me. I said, that's okay. I do remember that. As far as I was concerned, you were a young guy, wrong place, maybe wrong time at the University of Georgia, and everything else, you checked my boxes. Your resume was put together well, you spoke well, you looked me in the eyes, you shook hands, you were confident. I said, so beyond that, I don't know what to tell you other than HR asked me about it. Today may have been a little bit tougher to get that through. But I got it through, and that's why I don't have some sort of mystical answer to give to you. And he says, well, I need you to hear the rest of the story. And I said, okay. He said, I was your son. I said, what exactly do you mean? He said, I was exactly like your son. I'm lucky to be here. When you hired me, I had a probation anklet on, and you were the 18th company I had interviewed with, and you didn't turn me down, and you gave me an opportunity. He said, I got kicked out of my house here in Cobb County. I lived on the streets. I moved to San Francisco to further my habit. I lived on the streets in San Francisco, got in trouble. I eventually moved back, got in trouble again, and served work detail in prison for over 2 years. And you're the first one that ever gave me an opportunity. And it was heartbreaking. And my biggest response back to him was, I appreciate you telling me that. I never would have done anything differently with you. I only gave you the opportunity, and you did not squander that opportunity, and you've been a great employee. He got married, 3 kids.
Can I do the Paul Harvey thing right here? Yes. And the rest of the story is that when he came to our gala this past year, he was one of our biggest bidders. So he's given back. He's given back to the people who gave to him, and that's what it's all about.
Just seeking a second chance, right?
Exactly. In 2018,
18, we started doing national recovery conferences. And at the conference, we would give awards. And our awards was our logo, which is a dove, and the dove has double D's as wings for Davis Direction. And so we would give those awards out, and we would give them to people who had done exceptional things. And COVID ended the national conference, and people found out that you could do the same kind of stuff through Zoom, so it kind of went by the wayside. But we continued to do what we called our galas every year. And so this year we brought back the awards at the gala. And one of the awards this year at the gala was the First Responder Award. It's how a first responder has saved the life of somebody in recovery and given them a second chance. Really taking her last breaths. He walked in with Narcan and saved her life, brought her back.
Well, it was a surprise. And we don't, every fireman will tell you that they don't do this job for accolades and awards. I was humbled by the event, but it also is nice to realize that you made a difference in somebody's life, and deep down you do like to be recognized. It was emotional when there was a big group of people there, and I will tell you, looking around the room, and I think that was the biggest thing, is seeing everybody in that room that had some tie to an addiction. Loss of a loved one, being the worst part of it. They're proud of me. They're very proud. They're proud that I took on this endeavor. My dad was a Marine, so I kind of regret that I didn't follow in his footsteps and become a Marine, but we had that conversation. He says, I'm more proud of you staying 24 years at a fire department than staying 4 years in the Marines. This is a very long, tenured job career. The longevity here, you're talking about 25 to 35 years of a career keeping this job. Our past chief was 40 plus years. Long career. And to pay it forward, as you learn more and learn more and learn more, it's your job to teach the new ones that come in. Because also, you don't want to be the person that doesn't share, because you're there to make everybody better. And it also gives you a sense of gratitude that you taught them the right way, and taught them the Marietta way, or whatever department you're with, that you taught them your way, and you see them grow, and the basics that you taught them, you see them flourish. And now, after 20 years of you being here and them being here 10, now they're teaching the new people coming in and sharing that knowledge. So definitely is a pay it forward career.
As a recovery coach, it's great to know that I did help somebody feel better or have a good day, but to know that they appreciate it and that they got sober and they're happy and they see them smiling. And that's really what it's all about, is knowing that, we were able to make an impression and help hopefully change somebody's life.
I get this feeling of the people that come through here, that the greatest honor is they have somebody that is their general advocate, that's raising up amidst the stigma and everything else that goes along with that, and says, I'm here for you, and I will represent you. I think that, to me, is probably one of the biggest things.
Definitely get the impression you know this area like the back of your hand.
My daily drive. Yeah. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, newly renovated, dream come true. We have 4 people that need a place to live. Isn't that great? 4 bedrooms, and we had 4 people who needed a place. There it was. We called. The lady said, we've been praying that a nonprofit would want to rent this house. And she says, I swear before God that I almost came down to talk to you last week and ask you if you would be interested in renting a house. Made one call to one donor, and that donor had said to me, Missy, when you make an ask, you need to make a bold ask. I said, I'm making a bold ask, and I'm making it to you. I need this amount of money to put me in a house for staff. He said, you got it. I didn't even have to beg. Didn't have to negotiate.
That's when you know it's just meant to be. Those are the God things that happen that you know you're doing the right thing. And when I first started writing the book, I would often put in there, I feel like Davis is sitting at the right hand of God in his ear telling him, my mama needs this, my mama needs that. And God would just reach down and say, this is from Davis. So Davis loved to help people. And the fact that we're helping people now, Davis is loving it.
I was trying to connect with my son, and I sat him down at the dinner table. And this was 4 months before, we lost him. I said, I want to make you a promise. I will start working out, and you will see that you can overcome a lot of things in your life because you will be able to see a transformation physically in me. I need you to talk to me, to open up so that I can help you. That was day one, and I never turned back. So when I stepped foot in the gym at that time, I think I weighed 165 pounds. And today I weigh 225. So when I come in here, it's not only about this place, but it's still about the promise that I made to my son, because I'm sure that, I'm sure he's proud.
I remember when we started talking about the place and somebody said, well, what are we going to name it? And I said, well, it's going to be The Zone. And they said, well, are we going to vote on it? Are we going to talk about it? I said, no, we're not. And I said, it's going to be The Zone. And they said, well, why? And I said, because I remember when Davis was playing travel baseball and Michael was his coach. You know, everybody was always trying to figure out the signals to give everybody, whether you touch your hat or pull up on your belt or all those things that you do when you're that coach and you're trying to get your players to do what you want them to do. And the thing before the sign, the indicator. So the indicator was, get in the zone. And so the next thing he did was what you were gonna do. Right? And so I knew if we could keep people just doing the next right thing, they could get in the zone. And so it had to be The Zone. And I didn't give on that. That was one thing I did not give on.
I think they're doing some amazing work. A lot of people come in and they don't have anything, and they need someone to sit there and listen to them and tell them that they believe in them and to help them. And you don't find that at a lot of places, and at The Zone you do get that. So I'm grateful for Missy and Michael for allowing everyone to feel safe.
I think that's a satisfaction of this job, to bring somebody back from a cardiac arrest or to bring somebody back from an overdose. You get to see them up walking around, and that's why she's such an inspiration. You get to see her up walking around, and I saw how close she was to not being here anymore.
A lot of people look at me and they don't see an addict, they don't see someone that can relate to them when they walk in at that rock bottom point because of how far I've come. But to be able to share with them that I was exactly where they are and I got to where I am now, and it is possible and there is hope. And no one thought I would be here. I sure didn't think I would be sitting here talking to you right now, but I'm so grateful that I am.
From here on out, our decisions will turn into habits, and our habits will determine our character. It's finally up to us to decide how to live our lives. Now, how nice does that freedom sound? In closing, Edmund Hillary once said, "It is not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." The senior class of 2011 says, "We conquered the mountain. Now, on to ourselves."
Maybe we should come back down.